degrowth is a hot topic in Europe, but for example, the Japanese newspaper Asahi Shimbun would never choose this topic, so I don't really contest. But what is more surprising was they decided to invite me because I'm not just advocating degrowth, but I'm advocating degrowth communism. And the term communism may freak you out, especially because of the National Security Act in Korea. But no worries, I'm not defending the Soviet Union or China or North Korea. So that's the thing that I want to clarify before I begin my lecture. But I understand that many of you will be suspicious of the idea of degrowth communism, and people often prefer to speak about green growth or green capitalism. So basically today, in my presentation, I would like to talk why we need more radical ideas, especially in the time of crisis. So, as Professor Lee talked about, our economy or our world is facing a very serious crisis, which is today often called as global COVID crisis. The experience of the COVID-19 really demonstrated two big contradictions of capitalism, especially the neoliberal capitalism. One is the enlarging economic inequality. Especially the essential workers are only getting a small amount of money despite their exposure to the virus, while those people working in those industries called bullshit jobs, as they were naming it, consulting, financial sectors, or advertisement industry, those are making a lot of money while working in the remote safe places. So the top 1% earn more, while 99% are struggling with economic reasons and also with the virus. But the second problem is obviously the global ecological crisis. The pandemic was also caused by the excessive deforestation, and this excessive deforestation is also one of the major reasons for the climate crisis. And this climate crisis will accelerate in the future. So the pandemic is almost over, according to one, but there might be another one. But in any case, we will have more different kinds of virus crises, a combination of multiple factors, of course, the climate breakdown, which will lead to more wildfires, droughts, and hurricanes, and so on. That will also lead to the higher energy and water prices, which will create inflation, but as well as the climate refugees. The problem of climate refugees will also destabilize geographic order and causing more populist regimes, as Professor Lee just talked about, so I will comment this part. But this multiple crises, or ecological crisis, political crisis, and social crisis, all combined will lead to the new chronic emergency, the crisis, the chronic emergency that will not end so soon. So we will actually have to forget the time of the peaceful time of globalization, and we will now enter into a more risky, unstable situation in the next decade. So some of the data, as you know, as probability, for example, demonstrated, the wealth of top 1% is increasing and concentrating, and especially the top 0.1% is really making a lot of money even before the financial crisis. But in more recent years, especially during the pandemic, they are concentrating the wealth in the middle of the social crisis in all those countries, Brazil, China, and UK, and US, and so on. And the other problem that I mentioned is the climate crisis. After the period of dissolution of the Soviet Union in the last 30 period of the globalization is characterized by the increase of the greenhouse gases, and this tendency continues even today, and the last year was actually marked by the highest emission of greenhouse gases. Although in the last 10, 15 years, the number is relatively stagnating, but it's clear that we need to decarbonize our economy, but it is really far from decarbonization in any sense. The problem is that this contradiction of economic inequality and contradiction of ecological crisis will combine, because those who are rich will have more environmental impact, and Oxfam shows that the top 1% are responsible for actually 15% of the greenhouse gas emission, while the bottom 50% are only responsible for 7% of the greenhouse gas emission. But the problem is obviously people in Bangladesh, Pakistan, or India are the ones who suffer fast and most from those emissions from the rich, right? So there is a problem of climate injustice because those who are not responsible and those who don't have the measures and the capital to protect themselves are exposed to the risk. This is kind of similar to what we experienced during the COVID-19 pandemic, but this will happen in a much more global scale in the time of global ecological crisis, climate crisis. So, we obviously need a new kind of society, especially not definitely the one that neoliberal capitalism, because we need to really fix the problem of economic inequality and the problem of climate change. But the question we have is what kind of new society, new economic system we would like to have. And as I said in the very beginning, the mainstream discussion is about green growth and green capitalism. We invest in the renewable energies, we invest in electric vehicles, then we can decarbonize our society, but at the same time we can grow. So that will be decoupling of the environmental impact and economic growth, which will solve this problem of economic inequality as well as climate crisis. Is it really so? The problem is we don't have much time. Many scientists actually warn that we really need to decarbonize the society very fast. If we want to achieve the 1.5 degrees Celsius target, we have to reduce gas emission by half in the next 7 years or so, and we need to achieve or we need to decarbonize the entire economy by 2050. So we have only 2 decades or so. But the problem is obviously even those attempts made by Paris Agreement and so on are fully insufficient compared to the urgency of our situation, and the estimation is basically that we will overcome the 1.5 degrees Celsius already around 2030, and then by the end of the century, the rise of the temperature will be 2.7 degrees Celsius, so which is far beyond 1.5 obviously, but even the 2.0 target is not beyond our reach, is not within our reach. So when the existing system cannot offer a solution, of course they are trying very hard, but the problem is it is not very promising. I think the solution must come from outside, and there is a need for more radical theoretical framework. And one of the ideas is obviously the socialist ideas. I'm introducing different kinds of more radical movements emerging all over the world, and myself, I have been advocating liberal communism. And this is the Friday for Future movement that I'm supporting. I said socialism and extinction, and my friends were trying Japanese government is investing in the coal fire plants in the Bali in Bangladesh, and that will have a very devastating impact to the people in Bangladesh. But in any way, the book that I published almost 3 years ago, the title is Capital in Anthropocene, which was also translated into Korean under the title of Unsustainable Capitalism, I believe. I advocated Nicholas communism based on my new interpretation of Karl Marx. But first I started my book with the passage saying that SDGs are new opium of the people. Marx once said that religion is the opium of the people, but I said that SDGs, which is suggested by the United Nations, and that is very popular in Japan. People are bringing the water bottles and the eco bag and they recycle things and they are happy with it. But the problem is such individual behavior will not be sufficient to tackle against climate crisis. But the problem is when we do something good for the environment, we believe that we did something and we are satisfied and we forget about the system problem. So even the companies actually use SDGs as a new means of marketing. They say that, oh, we will donate some money for the poor kids in Africa so that they can go to school and so on. But the problem is that they actually use this to make them look good. And they're not really trying to reduce the amount of the products they're saying, or they even try to accelerate. We'll recycle all the clothes for you, so buy the new one. No worries, we'll protect the environment for you. And both companies and the consumers just use SDGs to continue business as usual without really challenging the current way of living, the current way of production. And that is one of the reasons why SDGs have become so popular in Japan in the last 3 years. And I believe that this kind of improvements is rather bad when we think about the necessity of the right of transformation. We actually avoid looking at the reality and we sort of dream of that what we are doing is actually good and so on. Rather, we really need to, I think one way to think about the current situation is we really need to fundamentally challenge our presumptions, our basic ideas. And we become so used to the idea of capitalism and growth. But my provocation of Negro's communism or Negro's socialism has to do with this challenge. And as Karl Marx demonstrated, capitalism is basically the system that exploits workers in order to accumulate wealth. But he also recognized that capitalism, such a system of human exploitation, is inevitably exploiting nature as well, and it creates a fundamental disruption in the relationship between humans and nature. And this is what he recognized, Karl Marx recognized already in the 19th century. And the problem is capitalism required continued consumption to feed greed, profit, and pockets of the few at the cost of the many, that as Professor Shiga just demonstrated. And there's a lot of destruction of commonwealth, the wasteful production, and the stressful competition that leads to high suicidal rate in Korea, for example, and that's the same in Japan too. But capitalism is historically a system of exploitation, oppression, and destruction. And if we look at the history of imperialism, colonialism, racism, authority, there are a lot of things that I can talk badly about capitalism. But anyway, capitalism is, in that sense, not a solution, but in my view, capitalism itself is a root cause of the political crisis in the Anthropocene. And if we really take the idea of common prosperity for all, not the people in the global north, not the people in Korea, not the people in Japan, he other animal beings, living beings, we need much more just kind of redistribution and distribution, and we need a much more democratic way of production. And that has to do with the idea of socialism. And the other aspect is degrowth. Because why do we need degrowth today? Because infinite growth on this finite planet is obviously not possible. And if we take this limit very seriously, we really have to think about scaling down our economy, especially countries in the global north, because their economy is actually characterized by massive production of unnecessary commodities which do not really contribute to social well-being. We just are more stressed by constantly producing and consuming all the unnecessary goods. And also the reducing carbon dioxide in the global north is realized only through more intensive and expensive global negotiations in the global south. So when we invest in electric vehicles, and when we invest in the batteries, and when we invest in the renewable energies, they will not be produced out of nothing. We will try to decarbonize our economy, but on the help, we rather need other resources like lithium, cobalt, nickel, coltan, etc. They are located in the global south. So if we don't fix our current way of growth-driven society, even the green growth will have a much higher environmental impact as before. And this is the myth of green capitalism. The one example is the demand for those rare metals, copper, nickel, cobalt, and lithium. If we try to decarbonize our society by 2050, the demand for those rare metals will accelerate, as given by the depicted by the red lines. In the next 20 years, the demand for copper, for example, will have to be doubled, and I wonder if there will be enough supply for such a high demand for copper, but also the new extraction of those metals will have much devastating impact upon the environment, especially in the global south. But I also understand that many people are still suspicious of the idea of degrowth, and I often get criticized. My book has been very popular in Japan, selling almost 500,000 copies somehow, but I get massive criticism from everyone because that idea is very ridiculous. But the problem is, do we have better alternatives rather than even if I agree that degrowth socialism or degrowth communism sounds a little bit exaggerating, but at the same time, alternatives are not compelling either. So I will briefly take a look at the three dimensions. Is green growth fast enough? Is growth possible? Is growth really desirable? And the first point is green growth really fast enough? As I said, we need to decarbonize the economy by 2050. And there's a time limit. Are we decarbonizing the economy fast enough? And if you look at the data, it seems that the blue line is GDP and the red line the carbon dioxide emission. And it looks that, in many countries, the decoupling of GDP and the carbon dioxide emissions are taking place. But one problem is that even countries like Germany are decarbonizing only like 30% in the last 30 years. So this pace is too slow. And how did they decarbonize? They decarbonize by investing in natural gas fire plant instead of coal fire plant. Or they introduce hybrid cars instead of gasoline cars. But these new technologies are not decarbonizing. It still emits a lot of carbon dioxide. So even the last 30 years doesn't really show the success of the decarbonization of our economy. And if you look at the countries like the US, many people think that, okay, when the economy grows, the actually grow and develop technology instead of degrow. Because we need more new technology in order to solve these problems. But again, let's look at America. Is America doing really good in terms of the environmental protection? No. If you look at the planetary boundaries, America is really exceeding all the boundaries, and their way of living is really far from being sustainable, right? So even if we succeed in investing in renewable energies and other efficient vehicles, as long as we keep the basic way of living as it is now, other problems like biodiversity, usage of water, usage of land, other ecological problems will remain, and it can get worse in the future. And this data also shows that the decoupling is not really taking place. The green line is the GDP growth on the world scale, but the problem is the blue line, the greenhouse gas, is also increasing, but even more, the red line, characterized by material footprint, it shows that how much resources we use every year, and the material footprint is really increasing at the same speed with the GDP. So this decoupling is not taking place at all in the last 50 years. So even if we try to dematerialize the capitalism, it's not taking place, and it will not take place so easily. But if we don't do something against this tendency, problems like biodiversity loss will remain. And I think when GDP and material footprint correlate each other, one way to reduce material footprint is degrowing the economy. But most fundamentally, is growth possible at all? Even if we try to grow, maybe the economy doesn't grow anymore. And that's one problem the Korean economy is facing, and Japan has been facing in the last 5 years. There are a lot of attempts, but Japan is not the only exception. If you combine other countries like the US, UK, France, and Germany, the GDP rate is no longer as high as before. After the 70s, the rate is becoming slower. And countries like the US alone, the basic tendency is lower and slower rate of growth. So I think this will actually continue in the future because Professor Rubini shows that this deglobalization and great stagflation will even have a worse impact on the rate of growth. For the countries like the US, and it will have a much more impact on the Japanese economy, which has stagnated. So we cannot really hope that we can actually go back to the golden age and try to keep growing in the next decade. But then if we cannot grow, we have to change our economic model in a way that we don't actually require growth anymore in order to satisfy our human basic needs. And the final question is growth really desirable? And one interesting data is this is from Japanese, but the green line shows the interest in economic growth. And the interest in economic growth is stagnating, and it has become even lower in the last 30 years or so. But the interest in the happiness, the purple line, is one of the highest stage in the last 130 years. So this is by looking at the Google Books and trying to search for the terms of happiness and growth, and then actually in many books in the recent years people talk about happiness rather than growth, because economic growth is no longer taking place, so people try to find a way of satisfying our desires and being happy instead of term capitalism, not called. Unfortunately, my Japanese friends, the younger comrades, my younger friends from the Fridays for Future Japan, are not so radical with demands around capitalism, but in Europe and in other countries, they are more attracted to the socialist ideas, as we can see from the Bernie Sanders and other examples. And then, if you look at the Twitter, this is an account of the Extinction Rebellion, UK, they are taking into the more direct actions against climate change, and they say eating just 1 millionaire will do more to prevent climate change than going vegan or never driving a car for the rest of your life. And the hashtag is eat the rich. So obviously the top 1% is responsible for the climate change. So instead of we 99% trying to change individual behaviors, we should change the system. We should make the 1% take the responsibility for what they have been doing in the past. And then that gets a lot of good reactions from the other people. And as you know from the news, last year, the group disaster of oil threw the tomato soup on the local sunflowers. And in Japan, for example, many people criticize that this is eco-terrorism. I am also not sure if this kind of action would really solve the climate change in an effective manner, but one thing is clear. The younger generations are really open to more radical measures. They are not interested in preserving the current situation because they are not getting any good things from the current system. The wage is stagnating, they have to pay high tuition, the rent is very high, and then comes the climate crisis. They are the ones who suffer more than we who are age of 40 and 50, right? So they are really saying that we need to fundamentally change the current system, and this is something that I completely agree with. So, if we really think that the oil crisis is such a serious crisis, the investment in green technologies alone will not be sufficient. I'm not saying that we should go back to the primitive way of living, right? But we should abandon the myth that the green technology alone would be sufficient and we can basically continue the current lifestyle, driving cars and buying new car every 5 years, changing iPhone every 2 years, eating hamburgers and flying to everywhere all over the world. That must be changed. We also have to reduce our excessive production and consumption. And that is why we need a much more radical thinking about current economic models, because the current model is based on the economic growth. And economic growth is actually already regarded as something good, but we have to question that. And why are we so afraid of talking about post-capitalism after capitalism many failures in the past, and it's creating inequality and injustice? And why do we lose the imagination for envisioning a better future? So I think it is more utopian to believe. I admit that because communism is very utopian and it will not be realized next year or next 10 years or so. I know that, but it is more utopian to believe that we can continue the business as usual in the next decade. If so, I think to be a utopian is the only way to be a realist today. Thank you very much.